Okay, hi everyone, welcome to the next video. So far, we've just touched base on switches, and we're still going to talk more on switches, as we cover VLANs, that's virtual local area networks, right? First, it says that still on the concept of switch can be configured to segment a network into smaller isolated sections called VLANs, right? Improving network performance and security. And here the word virtual, right? That's why it's hired with virtualization, virtual machines, right? And AWS and all this cloud computing, all providers, they are really big as far as virtualization or virtual machines are concerned, okay? And you say, for example, a company might use VLANs to separate the HR department, finance, or even engineering department into distinct network. And each time we start talking about the segmentation piece of it. But what is a VLAN, right? It said a VLAN or virtual area network is a logical grouping, yeah, the word logical grouping of devices on a network where devices in different physical locations can communicate as if they were on the same network, even if they are physically separated. You see, devices on or in separate physical location can still communicate. When I used to work as an Oracle DBA, work for this company that you will have your laptop, but you are definitely working in a virtual machine. So you log in, you go in there. While you are in that, it's just like a machine in a machine, right? You already have it there. It's just like you have your laptop, you have another laptop in your laptop. So you go there, you see the window, you see everything, but guess what? You cannot even remove information from there to your machine. You cannot, you have to log out from the virtual machines. And that's why it said it doesn't matter if they are also in separate physical location, but they can still communicate as if they were on the same local network. That's one, aspect of virtualization of virtual machines. VLAN allows network administrators to segment a larger network into smaller, isolated sections, enhancing both security and performance. For example, a company can create separate VLANs for HR department, finance, or even engineering departments, even if all employees use the same physical infrastructure. Do you see? Remember, I don't know if we'll talk based on infrastructure or I have it on the PCI DSS training, but if we're having that, I don't think so. I think I have it on the PCI DSS training. That's something we're going to cover in depth also. Each time we start talking about infrastructure, what does it mean? And that reminds me, because the reason of me going through this, again, I'm going to be taking people through OSI module. I don't want to go where we are talking of, all the different layers and the way that people understanding, but I thought we'll have a good holistic background on all of this. I promise you are good to go. Okay. So even if employees use the same physical infrastructure like switches, the department will be logically separated, preventing unwanted access. Okay. For example, we have a typical example here where we can create different VLANs, right? Do you see it still uses this switch, in that physical, access point located in that infrastructure. But now we have different sections. This network have been cemented. So you have HRO, you have all assets, components or network devices actually grouped in the ARO VLANs. You have finance also group in the finance VLANs. Engineering also have engineering groups in the engineering VLANs. You see, which make it easier. But how does VLANs work, right? First, it says that VLAN are created on network switch and use tagging to differentiate different belongings to each VLAN. Just to pause on this, tell me when you hear the word tag, what does it mean? Are you on social media platforms? Are you on Facebook? Are you on Instagram? Do you know you can tag? I'm not on TikTok. I don't know much about TikTok. Do you know you can tag a friend? Each time you tag somebody, when you want to post your videos, when you want to post your photos, you tag a friend, what happens? The friend receive notification. And there are also features that the friend might want to. Some people, maybe they'll disable the auto, maybe it just automatically post stuff on their feed, and that's something that you guys want to go to the setting and try to disable that. Because you can't just have people posting stuff and it's appearing on your feed. Like we posting some crazy stuff on social media, right? Like me, if you tag me, I will receive the notification. If you tag me, I'll receive the notification. I will receive the notification, but guess what? It's up to me if I want to allow it or not, right? So whatever thing you tag me, there are those things that, yeah, I'll see it, but I don't just allow stuff on my feed. So that's something that you guys, you want to also, if you've not enabled, make sure, don't just be on social media and be posting without at least turning some of those basic security features that are inbuilt, right? And that's why I say when data is sent over the network, it is tagged with a VLAN identifier so the switch can correctly forward the data to the right segment. And tagging is a process where a tag is added to the data packet to specify the VLAN it belongs to. So switches use a VLAN tag to direct traffic between the devices in the same VLAN, keeping it isolated from other VLANs. Remember, we have, I don't know if the next picture actually explained that. Remember, okay, this next picture explained it. Just before even going to that picture, remember, we have three VLANs here. So what happened? If somebody within the engineering department want to send message to somebody still within the engineering department, the switch already knows that it belongs to that VLAN. I know, but though it belongs to that VLAN, though it have this asset or devices connected, still it already know the right recipient. Remember we discussed on that. It already knows who to send it to. It don't just remember it learns a MAC address, it forward it, and all those things, right? But so it will already know, and that kind of, improve network bandwidth and performance, because if somebody within the engineering send it, the switch already have that tag. It knows that all of these devices actually belong in that particular VLAN, that's VLAN 3 for the engineering department. And likewise, if someone in the HR department wanted to send information, because we are doing that to confine, there's all sensitive data, right? These people, maybe like basic information, but we're going to see if what happened if one or two VLAN needs to communicate when we start talking of inter-routing, but that's something that we'll discuss shortly, right? But at the level of like segmentation and visualization, being able to create virtual VLAN where the switch, already knows, it uses that tag to be able to identify the respective VLAN and also the devices in there, right? Yep, and that's why this covers. Let's say, for example, an employee in the engineering department sent an email. The data package is tagged with the engineering VLAN level. You understand? So they say that particular data coming from that VLAN, it is tagged. It is tagged. It already know the VLAN that that particular message is coming from. It knows the MAC address, of that employee. So the switch uses the label to send the email to other devices in the engineering VLAN, keeping it separate from department. And remember, when we even talk about flooding, yes, in this situation, in that VLAN, if the switch does not also have the MAC address of, say, the recipient, it will flood that data. It will flood it within the engineering VLAN. But guess what? It's gonna wait for a response. It will not deliver the message. You understand? How you guys are feeling me? I'm loving this. Okay. And this gives us a good overview as to what we have been discussing, right? So if you see how does VLAN works, you have the tagging, that's a message, a VLAN tag. And you see in the course of this switching, these are all the devices in the engineering VLAN. And because that message already have that VLAN tag, the switch knows and definitely also have a MAC address table for all the devices on that VLAN, and now it will be able to route or send the message to the recipient. But what are some of the benefits VLANs? First, we talk of improved security. VLANs separate sensitive data and limit access to specific groups or departments. For example, HRO and finance data are only accessible by user in those VLANs, right? Preventing unauthorized access from other departments. And you guys, remember at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you all do. We start talking about CIA trail, unauthorized. That has to do with confidentiality, right? Also, better network performance. VLAN reduce network congestion by limiting the broadcast domain. You understand? Device within a VLAN only see traffic from other device in the same VLAN, reducing the overall load of the network. Because again, you segment it, what is chemistry? Is it light pole and whatsoever, but this one they attract, right? So you have simplified network management. VLAN makes it easier to manage network policy and resources. Administrators can apply specific rules, for example, security policies, traffic prioritization to each VLAN. For example, in a company, VLANs are segregated, can segregate traffic between departments to reduce the chances of networks slow load or even improve security. These think the benefits are very crystal clear. This diagram gives us a good visualization as to what we'll be discussing. Congested and insecure network, segregated and secure network. Doesn't matter which we go with, but let's look at this one on the right. You see congested insecurity. Come to think of it, this is a VLAN without, a switch without a virtual VLAN, without a virtual LAN, right? Virtual local area network. So imagine everything is connected to that switch. Do you see the route? Do you see how congested it is? And of course, the probability of maybe a mistake or something might happen. And that's why I just have everything connected. It's so congested, it overwhelmed, it slowed down performance, network bandwidth, and so on. Do you see these bad guys right here? You see, they'll be targeting. They are targeting a lot. They are also using network analyzer to be able to see, analyze. They can even find any vulnerabilities, any loopholes that they can intrude or impede or get information. But on the flip side, look at this here. Yes, we do have a switch. We do have the hacker. The hacker have probability of like, okay, you want to get to the switch. Again, the switch is my device. But here you see the hacker is not only targeting the switch, the hacker is also targeting other devices. As I said, they also use network analyzer to be scanning the network, because even all the devices connected, guess what? They might also have weaknesses. The fact that they are being connected to the switch doesn't mean that they do not have vulnerabilities. They might have limitations. They might have bugs. They might have weaknesses. And the hacker can identify that, and guess what? They can infiltrate it. And of course, now they can be man in the middle attack. The fact that that person is sending that information, guess what? They are also monitoring. They can play around with it. They can manipulate it. You see, we have them right there. Do you see? But on the flip side, if a switch have a virtual LANs, do you see what is happening? Those LAN are already encrypted, right? It's a logical area, an environment where all those devices dwell. They're housed in there, and it's locked. You understand? The information or communication is confined. It's not like this one, like you are sending, the switch is sending, and then come to think of a situation where the switch does not even have the MAC address for that particular device or the recipient. The switch will have to broadcast, will have to float that information to all the devices connected to that switch within that LAN. But guess what? In the course of doing that, remember I tell you, some of these devices can have weaknesses, vulnerabilities. Hackers can definitely use network analyzer, and they can actually, tamper with some of the information or even gain unauthorized access. But on the right side, it is confined. It's confined within that VLAN. So the switch, each information that goes in there, the switch already knows. So it's confined, and that's why we talk of improved security. I hope this makes sense. VLAN tagging and traffic segregation. So it said when configuring VLANs, the switch tags traffic to indicate which VLANs it belongs to. This tag is then used by other switches and devices in the network to route traffic to the correct VLAN. Access port. A port on the switch assigned to specific VLAN. Devices connected to this port are part of the VLAN. It makes sense? You see, devices connected to that port, as we discussed, they were seen here already, they are part of the VLANs, right? And then trunk ports, this is interesting. A port on the switch that can carry traffic from multiple VLANs. It carries traffic, that's a port on that switch, one port that can carry multiple VLANs, right? Trunk ports are typically used between switches or between a switch and a router, and we're going to discuss router in depth shortly. For example, a user in the HR department connects their computer to a port
configured as access port for the HRO VLAN. The traffic from this device is then isolated from the older traffic within the network. And this gives us a typical example as to what we have been discussing all along. Do you see the trunk port? This trunk port, and no, for this switch, it can carry multiple VLANs, right? And then we have the access port, and this definitely and tagging. This literally covers everything that we have been discussing so far. And like that, you can see trunk port have the probability or capability of carrying multiple VLANs. But how VLAN and switches work together? Okay, you guys can see it's a VLANs are configured on layer 2 switches. Again, OSI module. By the time we visit OSI module, you guys will be talking now again. These are kind of when like really out of scope. Now, I want people to see that it doesn't matter. You people might just say the word networking and then you are scared. You feel like it's so hard that you cannot understand. It just depends who is teaching you. It depends, right? Tell me from what we've covered so far, do you want to tell me that you've not like you are lost, you don't know anything? It just depends who teaches you. And I'm doing this because again of PCI DSS. PCI DSS is so heavy, as far as network is concerned. We have all those different devices, right? Yes, you are not a network admin, but you'll be working with these folks. You serve as a liaison to make sure your organization achieves certification. And there's just no way you'll be leading that effort without you, at least even when they are presenting those artifacts to you, you should at least have a basic understanding. Don't be dumb man without you knowing anything. And that's why I'm really going out of my comfort zone to be able to teach people this. Okay. So if you look, the switch receive data from a device. The switch tags the data within the appropriate VLAN ID. The switch forward the data only to the device within the same LAN. Okay. Right, so the switch will then forward the data only to the device within the same VLAN as we discussed, ensuring the traffic stays isolated from other VLANs. So, for example, if a user in the finance department send a file to another finance employee, the switch ensures that the file is only delivered to devices in the finance VLAN, not in the HRO engineering department. So this is exactly what we have been preaching, right? So if you look at the tag data with ID, right, we have this device one, and then we have forwarded to, you see VLAN 10, device two, and then do you see, it knows that this belongs to the finance department, it knows this belongs to the HR department, it knows this belongs to the engineering department. And this also suffices. Data is received, VLAN is tagged, data is forwarded. Do you see? Finance, VLAN, VLAN 10, VLAN tag, and you just know where to route that information. For a practical example, let's say that a company has three departments at both talk. I don't know why I'm going with these three. I should go with IT. What do you all think? Right. So we talk of HRO finance as well as engineering. So the HRO VLAN is set up with restricted access to personal information and payroll system. The finance VLAN handles financial transactions and sensitive customer data, while the engineering VLAN is for development and testing systems, which are also isolated from sensitive financial data. So talking about security and efficiency, VLAN ensure that traffic from the HR department doesn't interfere with or have access to the finance or engineering departments, while also improving network performance. As these are things that we've been talking, right? So if you see here, this definitely give us a good visualization as to all the things that we have been discussing. And the beautiful thing, if you see here, you see that log, restricted access to personnel information and payroll system is confined. Only the rightful incident, how they call, users can definitely have access to that system, and still they also belong in a particular virtualized environment, virtual environment. And likewise, financial transaction and sensitive customer data. And then, of course, talking about engineering, that's the developers, development and system testing isolated from sensitive financial data, right? And then one thing we're going to talk on has to do with inter-VLAN routing. And each time you hear the word route, that's where the name router is derived. Okay? So a company has three departments. T, our favorite department, HR, finance, and engineering. The HR VLAN is set up with restricted access to personal information and payroll system. The finance VLAN handles financial transactions and sensitive customer data, while the engineering VLAN for development and testing system isolated from sensitive financial data. They are all separated. And for a security and efficiency, ensure that traffic from HR department doesn't interfere with either um, finance or engineering department. And the cost of doing that, it also improve the network performance. Okay. And this talking about inter-VLAN connection. What do we say it is again? A company has three financial department, the HR is restricted, but here the word inter, what we all think about inter. Do you see? It first of all separated, but still that communication can happen, right? So you have HR VLAN, then you have how they call finance VLAN, but you see router or layer 3 switch, that also allows that communication to happen. Okay, allows the communication to happen. Do you see? And that's what we have, and that's why we keep talking of inter routing VLAN connection. Okay, so takeaway from all what we discussed, it says that VLAN allows you or network administrator, not you, to segment a network into smaller isolated sections, improving both network performance and security. They are created and managed on switches using VLAN tags to secrete or segregate traffic. Key points: VLAN helps organization and secure traffic in a large network. Devices within a VLAN are isolated from devices in other VLANs. Inter-VLAN routing is necessary for communication between VLANs. So look at what we have. VLANs or inter-VLAN routing, VLAN traffic segregation, and inter-VLAN routing. VLAN help organize and secure traffic in large networks. Devices within a VLAN are isolated from devices in other VLAN. That we discussed that already. Inter-VLAN route is initial communication between two different VLANs. So we have the HR department, we have the finance department, but how would this VLAN be able to communicate? And that's why we talk of inter-VLAN routing. And I believe the next video is going to take us to routers. So I'll see you guys in the next video. We'll slowly, gradually, find our way. And now we'll start talking about routers. We'll talk about routers, we'll start talking about firewalls, IDS, IPS, DMZ, and all those, and then talk a little bit about port protocol, IP addresses, but we have a long way to go. So make sure you watch these videos. I'm trying to keep it short, that way you can assimilate the concept better. And if you have any question, don't forget to put it in the comment section. Also give this video a thumb up, comment, like, share with your family and your friends. If you're someone that you're watching that you have not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to our video. Thank you, and I appreciate you all very much. Bye-bye.